Yo, how's it going? All right, let's get this shit started. So this project isn't that big. Usually, I mean, people have like tracks up in the fucking hundreds for a lot of these. But in terms of the core idea, it's like really like 6 tracks or so. So I think the first thing that I did was record something on the Moog. It sounded something like this. And I didn't know what to do with it. So I put on a little bit of reverb, an auto filter, an EQ, and then some effects to just give it a little bit of like background shit. Just random automation. I think the next thing that I did was start messing around with like some sounds on the Moog. I have the Moog Sub 37. The Sub 37 carried this track. I was also in the middle of an Elden Ring playthrough, and I think I was in the Altus Plateau, and I got my ass fucking kicked. And I was so pissed that I was like, all right, let me just make a beat. I think I started with a little bit of a pattern, like a little melody. Added some sidechain to it, made it sound kind of interesting, and then I think I recorded it into the Moog with something like this. Yeah. It sounds like a telephone, you know, like a dial tone, and that's because of the continual looping that it does. If I press the note, it will continually loop over and over again with like a 0.1 millisecond thing and an infinite sustain. So you have to play it super choppy. And I was also messing with the filter, so you can sort of hear the drive increase there. Then I put some effects on it, which is just like a dimension creator or whatever the fuck, you know, the Serum one, and a phaser. And then I put an EQ on it to just cut the lows out, because the Moog has like random sub frequencies that it just creates. Like, what the fuck is that? Like, that's insane amounts of sub that a lot of people just can't hear. But if you had it on a sorry, do you see the fucking rat freaking out in the back? I then put a hybrid reverb and I automated it. You can see how fucking random this is, just to give it some like movement. It's honestly barely noticeable, like if you play it without. Then I put on OTT. Without OTT, it sounds like this. With just a little bit tighter. How did I add the automation? Yeah, sure. So you can see some of this automation is fucking batshit crazy, right? So what you can do in Ableton is highlight a section you want to automate and insert like an envelope. So this is like, has an attack, it has a decay, it has a release. But what you can do is now layer that with another part, you know, like select a little bit, put a triangle, select something in there, put a square, fucking do whatever you want. And you get some cool, like, what the fuck is that, right? And this is without, and this is with. It's subtle, and it just like is when you're bored, you just like put that on there, and it adds a lot of dynamics. You can see I also did the same with the volume. So you can see the volume is constant, except here. I mean, it's barely noticeable. Maybe here it's a bit. Yeah, it sounds like a pre-kick sidechain, you know? Right, it adds almost like ghost notes to the track without actually having to play anything. So I added OTT. I probably took a filter off. Yeah, I have an automated filter for like the verses to like play it really subtly. And then I put a sidechain on it to sidechain with a separate kick. There's the sidechain over there. I sidechain all my stuff with a separate kick just to make sure that I can control it better. Let's look at sort of the drums then. So the drums I made in a separate project. I don't know, there was like 6 stacks of them that I was like, okay, let me just make a new project. What separating the drums into a separate project does for me as well is that it allows me to do a lot of chops and also analyze where the waveform sits, right? So in my first few videos, I did a lot of stuff on delaying your perks using this Ableton track delay feature here. But what I didn't talk about is you can't see how much it is delayed visually, right? You have to sort of use your ear to determine how much it is. But now that I bounce the audio, I can see, okay, that's like 2 units or whatever away from the center. And that helps a lot when you're trying to delay your stuff. You can just line it up, right? Swinging your drums is not a science, but it's kind of a science. So anyways, let's break down some of these drums. Here you can clearly see my clap. Look how far before the beat that is. And all of my perks, look how far away from the beat they are, right? Like this and like this. So what that does is allows for a crazy sort of little. I also played the main part of these drums on my keyboard, pretty much just the hat, clap, and the kick. And that allows you to get some really interesting rhythms. Like, you can hear the drums come in early. Like, the kick comes in half a beat early. I don't think I would have programmed that in myself. If I didn't play it out, I don't think I would have been able to find that pocket, right? Then I added a bunch of crap. Like you can hear like a lot of just extra shit. But overall, you can see 90% of the waveform's like pretty empty here. And a big part of this beat that works out is it's like a call and response, right? So the beat starts that. And what that does with the melody is it ends up with this like this back and forth. Shaperbox is a volume envelope shaper that allows you to get a quarter note sidechain. So right now it's set at 1/4 note.
Hello?
And you can put it at varying, like just completely flat note.
Hello?
It's so much easier than trying to sidechain to a kick, especially 4 on the floor beats. 4 on the floor is like, you're going to sidechain quarter note. What I do is I sidechain quarter note, but put my drums not on quarter notes, and it gives this like weird, like, you can hear the kick comes early, but like the sidechain comes after it. That. Like what? Another big thing that I do, you can see, is cutting random bits of audio out. Like this was pretty just for whatever reason. I mean, that was for just the intro, but like you can see this part. Like, why did I put that in? And I do the same in here as well. Sometimes it's not about adding extra layers. It's just about making the ones that you have currently a little bit more complex. And mine, like all of my tracks are very simple. Like I'm not a keys player. I don't have crazy synths. Everything is audio or like maybe basic one shots and shit. So what I need to do is make every element that I have just more complex than it is. Yes, sorry, yes. So the Moog Sub 37 is perfect for me. Out of all the synths I've had, this is the only one that I will not sell because it's so simple. I like that there's only 2 voices, and it's not even 2 voices. It's like only 1 voice per oscillator. So you can't do chords, which means you shouldn't even bother doing chords, which means you should just try and make the craziest fucking single note you can. Yeah, that's what leads me to make these tracks. Also, shout out to Robotaki for literally like coaching me on the Moog Sub 37. Here's another Moog thing. This is a little bit tighter than this one. You can hear the FM like wobble in here. But that's sort of part of the trick, right? So if you increase the rate of the wobble, it increases in pitch too, right? And it gives that like ringtone, which I found like needed to be on here at all. So let's just listen to that in the context of the melody and the drums. Just like a nice little addition. And you can see that it's ever so slightly, everything is just not quantized. It's ever so slightly just delayed there. And this is just raw Moog, right? Like you don't have to affect everything that you put in there. Next up in the drop, we have the bass. So the bass is a Serum patch that I made. Like I was listening to a lot of like Daria Core shit, and then I got some advice from Zebula on how to make something like this. So this is just like an ass load of sound, and it's basically like just the sub. That's how much sound design I do. I turn off the oscillators and I turn the sub on and I turn the noise on. I just wanted like a good fundamental sound, right? Because of the volume envelope, like the weird volume envelopes I've applied here, they affect this entire rack, which includes the bass. Everything dips in. It makes it feel like I'm like jamming the volume by hand, but I'm not. I just like choose random envelopes. You just gotta let like Jesus take the wheel, you know? So that sound was good, but it didn't like punch through enough. So what I did was I add Serumfx. So Serumfx is like my favorite effects plugin because it's just a really solid rack and you get it for free with Serum, and you don't have to use Serum to use it, right? Like you can route anything through it. What I did was I added some dimension. I didn't fucking realize I made my bass stereo. Yeah, the entire bass is stereo, which they tell you not to do, right? But who gives a shit? If it sounds good, it sounds good. And then I added some distortion. So with the whole ringing thing and the drums, this is what the core of the drop sounds like.
Hello?
Right, but plus, you know, some things. That's 3 tracks. Plus like a little thing. That's just 3 tracks. I mean, okay, of course the drums were like 14 tracks in another project, but that's 3 elements. So because this sounded sort of like a ringing, I added I don't know, like this. Like you pick the phone up, right? Like you hear this, and then you hear this ringtone.
Hello?
Yeah, and then after that, that sort of defined what it's gonna be. It's like a surprise and then like a super fucking hard drop, and that's why I called the project Ring Ring. That was the original name of the beat, but we of course changed it based on lyrics. You can see a bunch of failed ideas for the drop. Like, I don't know what the fuck this is. I don't even know if that's in key. Like, see, I was going for something a little bit more spacey, emotional, right? Like I use samples a lot to just audition ideas. Here's... Yeah, like trying out different, like a vocal chop. Oh, why is there a granulator? Let's go over that. So I took those vocals and put them in a granulator. Right? And obviously it's just a little bit much. But I was like, there's some cool shit in there. So you can see, oh, the input of my granulator's gone, but that's okay. I would highly recommend checking out Granulator 2. It's free for Max for Live for Ableton. But I ended up taking this one shot, which was like, I was like, oh, that's so fucking sick. And I put this delay on here and, you know, the classic Serumfx. I think Serumfx is on every single one of my channels. And you can hear this in the context of the beat. Yeah, it's just like a little... Just like a little texture. Let's go over the structure of why I chose the elements I chose. So I play in G sharp minor because that's the easiest one for me. And if you go on the keyboard, G sharp minor is all black keys except for E and B, right? So what you do is that, like in a minor key, there's the intervals. What's the fucking interval? Whole, whole, half, whole, half, or some shit like that, right? The half step puts you in this really interesting place. It's like darker, and it like is all the sounds that I do. So if you go from like that little half step every single time. Okay, so here's G sharp minor. Like pretty standard. But if you go G sharp, A sharp, and then this to A sharp to B. Right? Like the little... It's like a... like Jaws or whatever. And then you do the other half interval, which is D sharp to... By the way, this is like, I'm saying notes. I have no music theory experience. I don't know what interval this is. I don't know fucking shit. Like that. Right? That's sort of like the spooky interval. And I like that a lot because that... And then you sprinkle in some of the other notes. And it always just keeps you in this like harder, trappy sort of space, right? But what you can do is, what's the Theophilus Monk, like 2 notes really quick, right? Some shit like that. Some shit like that, and you get this. So that adds everything. That little interval right there. Right? That adds everything to the sound. So if you have simple elements, you better make sure that they're detailed as well, right? Yeah, then the bass has actual MIDI, thank God. Let's go. So the bass has also those little interval things. You can see that right here. And I'm using a lot of non-quantized sounds, right? Like you can see even the 1 is off grid. Like that's not even on grid right there. Like that's not on grid and that's not even on grid, but it sounds early, right? And let's see how it plays with the melody. The way that I think about it, right? I like French house music, and French house music is all about a repetitive 4-bar section. So right here, I have a melody that's very repetitive. Same, you always hear this. That pops up like literally every 4 notes. So what you do to make it not boring is you make your bass line the progression. There are no chords here, but if there were chords here, the root notes of those chords would be moving more complexly than the melody, if that makes sense, right? So I start up here, I do some movement to up here, then I go down here, then I go back up, then down, then up, right? But it's all about feel. The root notes, if I delete this, right? This is the progression. right? That's super simple. But the melody loops itself, but the progression does not loop itself. So that's how you keep shit complex when you have a really simple melody. And you can see I meet the same call and response, right? Like if I have gaps, I emphasize those gaps. If there's going to be a gap in the melody, there's going to be a gap in the bass, and that's fine. Here's some more failed ideas. Moog sounds. That's one take, by the way. That's one take. I'm not even like shitting you. That shit is crazy. Oh, also, Memblem Sounds Volume 1 coming out in December. The thing that I learned in Jank music theory is that the word progression does not relate to chords. Everyone says chord progression because a chord includes like a melody and a mid and then a bass. But your progression can be defined by anything. It can be defined by a melody, it can be defined by a chord, or more importantly, it can be defined by your bass. A progression, you feel whatever progression people are talking about, 2-5-1, all that bullshit through this. Like, I don't know what that is. I think that's like a 2-5-1, maybe. I don't know. But that's a chord theory term, but I'm applying it to just the bass because I can't play fucking chords. You want 2-5-1? 2-5-1 sounds good. Do a 2-5-1 in the bass notes. You can find that from your key. And this shit is taking me like fucking 4 years to learn, by the way. And I still can't play chords, by the way. Other failed ideas. That's some good shit right there. I also sprinkled in a bunch of random noises. Fills, you know me and my fills. And then this is my favorite part of the entire beat. Okay. So that section is basically just the bass. I have this very muted, or actually I turn it off. And I make sure to add sprinkles of crap. Those are from the failed ideas, right? Like what the hell is that sound? Like, it's so loud, has no place. But it adds that little, like that adds everything for me. And it's a movement, right? And that was by accident, right? I did not think that's what that was going to sound like. I just started layering shit here and there, taking some of my failed ideas like this. This is where I got that part, right? Just taking random one shots, messing around until you get something cool. And when it comes together, you emphasize it, right? But you don't need to overdo it. Then I let the bass ride out for a bit. Then I bring a little layer in. And this is just like me on my Moog, like with the resonance filter, like random fills. And just like, putting in what I can. But at the end of the day, it's still 4 main tracks. All right, so intro. Here are some chords taken from a MIDI kit. That's just G sharp minor. These aren't even really like anything, right? But then I was like, I just want the top end of them and the tonality. But let's go over the cool section. This synth will be in Memblem Sounds Volume 1. This is a Moog sound resampled through Serumfx with a massive reverb on it, 100% reverb. So this is what it sounds like by itself, which is still kind of cool. One issue with Moog sounds is that the warping doesn't do very well with it. So you have to keep it on beat warping mode, but that adds artifacts. So you put a reverb to just get rid of it, and it ended up sounding super like big and epic, right? Then what I did, okay, this is I automated the reverb size and decay. So if I mess with this, right, and this size, I get this. Like those. Which are like what the hell is this? That's like some fucking Christopher Nolan shit. So again, it's one element, but I can't play chords, so I had to make that one element very interesting. What else do we have here? Like, by itself, it doesn't sound good. Like, what is this sound? But, like, whatever. Who cares, right? Like, if you make music, you don't know what will sound good. Like, you don't. You just don't. You just need to stop deleting shit and let it sit there, even though it looks ugly and takes up space. And maybe it will be useful in the future. This is also on the Moog. What you do is you take the arpeggiator and you like put your arm on the keyboard on all the black keys, because I'm in G sharp minor, so it gets 5 out of the 7 keys or whatever, and then you turn the rate of the arpeggiator down. And it's like a saw wave. You don't have to use the Moog. You can use operator for this. There's a big delay, a big reverb, and a big on there. And that adds a lot of ambience to when you sort of get tired. You know, just like brings it out. And then shout out to Robotaki for these. Like, I needed some advice on the track and he recorded these in. Doesn't that sound so nice? He has this outboard pedal called a microcosm, which is like this big verb, and it gets like noise like that. Like, listen to that. Yeah, so that's the intro and the drop. Let's listen to that real quick. Like, even now, listening back, I would make some changes. Like, I think this sounds a little boxy, but it's okay because there's vocals on it. You can hear the reverb automation, right? Like, that's the reverb automation from Serum. A little janky, but here that's 2 stacks, unreverbed and reverbed. Then I just bring the melody in a little bit.
Hello?
Lots of contrast. The bass is completely stereo. By cutting the lead out in the second half, I allow the other elements to shine, right? Like, I think the bass is pretty cool. I do a little change in the melody of the bass. So this is the regular bass patch. But I do a little change up, you know? Just based on, like, whatever feels good. All right, let's move on to this section. This is all Robotaki's fucking chords, man. And I was like, they fit really well. And he's like, just keep them. And I was like, seriously? He's like, yeah, down tempo. Here's some cool failed ideas here. Like trying to be like all fucking... Trying to be a little bit more emotional there. But then I was like, no, fucking whatever. I don't even know what this is. Oh my god, why was I trying to add that? Yeah, that's the meat of the beat. That's the beat my meat. This is my like beat tag. I add this to every beat now, which adds just a lot of like shit to it. I don't know. It's kind of cool.
Hello?
So if you ever hear that, that's me. Let's do a little recap, right? Recap of beat breakdown. Number 1, I can't play chords. All my elements, there's like 4 main elements, and each of those elements have to be simple but complex enough that they can stand on their own. Number 3, you don't need music theory, but you need to know why chords are important and what they achieve. And then you apply that to your stuff. If people start talking about intervals and all this shit, they're trying to convey a message that is central to them, but they don't know how to express it in words, right? And that's the same with me. I can say this interval, that interval, but realistically, it's just me messing around until something sounds good. And I stuck with it. There were like 50 beats before this that sounded like ass. And also just add interesting elements and play fucking Elden Ring so you get pissed enough to make this beat. Another piece of advice is don't wait too long before releasing shit, because the longer you sit on a beat, the more that you're going to either dislike it or like it and have an opinion about how it's going to do. But you don't know, because you no longer know what it's like to listen to that beat straight off the top of your head. So yeah, just release it, honestly. Well, if it's shit, it's shit. Yes, but that's the issue, is that you don't know if it's shit. You think it's shit. But that could be because you notice the mix too much and you're too lazy to fucking... You don't know what's good or what's not good. Like, you really don't. All right, let's move on to the vocals, shall we? That's the entire beat. So Louisa is an amazing vocalist, and she always fits the theme really well. But mixing her vocals, I'm lucky enough to have like a vocal chain that I work with now. I've only done like 3 tracks with her, but they've all turned out really well because I think she understands the concept of what I'm trying to achieve. So I knew that I didn't really want anything on the drop, maybe a little bit. So I added a little bit of an intro. And here is, I think it's a reversed version of the start of the beat. Yeah, that's the start of the beat. I didn't think that was a good enough intro. So I took a separate section and I put that there. So her vocals came in. Here are the raw vocals.
Calling up your phone. I just wanna know if you've already gone. Oh no, oh no.
Very simple, which I like. Some people will like send me like 50 goddamn stacks. So my vocal chain is basically this. Let's do one by one and go through it. Shout out to Love Park. Shout out to everyone that's helped me with my vocal chain. Okay, so I have Nectar on here. Nectar has a vocal assistant, but what I use it for is just like, it's just a good stack. EQ, that was done by the assistant. So let's go one by one. Okay, so
Hey,
raw vocal,
hey,
little EQ.
hey. Calling
Little
up your
de-esser,
phone. I just
and you can hear it, just little peaks and whatever here, right? Another EQ to cut out the low end and boost some of the mids.
I just want.
And then you compress the living fuck out of them.
Hey, calling up
I'm
your
not even
phone.
kidding. This is max
just
compression. This is max compression. The threshold is on the floor.
Hey, calling up your
When you deal with cheaper microphones, you sort of have to do this a little bit. This is without the compressor.
Hey, calling up
This is
your
with.
phone. I just wanna know if you've already gone.
It just makes it tighter, you know? And you need to fucking slam it. I'm sorry, but you do sometimes. Yeah, like, I mean, okay, I'm still not good at vocal mixing. Yankee, Love Park, Robotaki, my homie Chris Young have all given me tidbits of information that helps a lot. Here, I boost the high ends a little bit
Hey,
and just like
calling up
cut
your
some of the mid
phone.
low. Oh, fuck it, just use your ear. Here, I use my free Legacy 1176. You don't need an 1176, but guess what it does?
Hey,
Squashes the fucking vocal.
phone. I just wanna know.
It squashes the living fuck out of them. Like, this is without any compression.
Hey, calling up your phone.
And that's with compression.
I just wanna.
Just fucking slam it. It feels like the effect of like having a vocal right in mono, but you can still make it stereo. Anyways, a little bit of OTT.
Hey, calling up.
I mean, honestly, I think that's too much OTT, but the beat is just like kind of overwhelming, right? Like you can hear how much shit is going on in the beat.
Hey, calling
Without the OTT,
I just wanna know.
OTT is more compression, way more compression, and a little bit of spice in the top end. And I actually cut the hey out because there was too much breathiness there. So it was just like,
Calling up your phone.
you can basically hear cars on the fucking street in the background now because of how much I've compressed it. So what I did was I added a gate, and what a gate will do is it will take anything that's below a certain threshold and cut it out, like right here.
No, oh no, wait. I've been
Yeah, see the
losing
gaps?
sleep. Don't want you.
This is without the gate.
No, oh no, wait. I've been losing sleep.
This is with the gate.
Losing sleep. Don't want you to.
Now it sounds super tight. Then I added just a touch of reverb.
Calling up your phone.
Just a tiny
I
bit.
just wanna know if.
Barely.
Calling up your
I really like a dry vocal, but completely dry is too dry.
calling up your phone.
Just a bit too dry. So you add a little bit of reverb.
You've already gone.
You can honestly barely fucking hear it, but it adds a lot. Arrangement wise, I then take her doubles and I pan them hard left and right. So she records one take. And this is the same chain. Right? And then you pan them hard left, hard right. And then with the original. And you can hear how extra the beat is. You have to sort of like compress the shit out of it and turn it up. Otherwise it won't push through. You can hear failed experiments here. Tried to do some, I don't know what the fuck this is, dude. But you know, you give everything a shot here, like try and layer them.
Hey, calling up your phone.
Right? Like you just do whatever you can. She originally sent me just those two pieces, but then I wanted like a bridge, which I got a lot of help from Robotaki on.
Wanna see you
And then she recorded just one take.
You just say
Just like, that's all you need, just one
I
take.
gotta fight.
You just gotta use what you can and adapt to it, right? Like I used to have a different microphone, an SM7B, and there are people that can make an SM7B sound amazing with the proper preamp, with the proper fucking interface, with the proper compressors, but I didn't have that on me, so I sold it and bought this like shitty Amazon mic or the Audio-Technica mic, and it sounds better. So I just use that instead, and it's much cheaper. So here you can see I made some edits here and there. That hit came in too harsh for me, so you know, when you bounce the entire instrumental versus the vocal, you can make changes that you couldn't make before. Like you can make big arrangement changes that help a lot. Run that through, and then here you go. Cut that out, put a little bit of reverb on there. And then bring the vocals back up in the second half of the track. Still no chords, by the way. And then you take that, and you can take it to, yeah, and then you can play it. That shit is so blasted. Yeah, hell yeah. That's the beat. That took me, I mean, over the course of like 6 months, but like the actual beat, I think I made in about a day, added some elements, maybe another day later, and then just like let it sit there. Got vocals, mixed it in, made some changes, and then finished. It came together quite quickly when it did come together.